Revenge films.
My name is Alice Brown, and currently I live together with my husband Daniel and my daughter Anna, who's in 8th grade. I'll prepare her for a feast tonight. Yay! Thank you, I'm looking forward to it. That day was my daughter's birthday, so I was extremely busy from the morning preparing for her birthday dinner and picking up her birthday cake. But in the evening,
I'm at my sister's place, and I'll be having dinner over here, so go ahead and eat without me.
that was the message I got. I did remind him that it was our daughter's birthday today, but I'm still getting this kind of message. I can't understand how he prioritizes his sister over our daughter's birthday. It's not even an emergency or anything, just him eating over at her place. I can't believe this. The truth was that my husband is abnormally fond of his sister. He'd always prioritize his sister over me or our daughter. He'd always break promises, but at least for today, I wanted him to be here to celebrate our daughter's birthday. I was thinking of what I should say to my daughter while looking at my husband's message. It's okay, Mom. He's not coming, right? I figured. It seems like our daughter has no hopes for her father, who prioritizes his sister over his daughter, too. And I would rather eat with just you and me, Mom. It's more fun that way. Let's eat. The food looks delicious. I thought I'd be able to bear a child without any problem, but I was mistaken. My husband had already lost his parents while he was in college, but I did meet with his sister during our wedding. That was the first time seeing her, but even then she seemed to show no interest in me. But I will never forget that about that one incident. It was when I felt that I may have become pregnant, but I was told something unbelievable. It was when my husband told her sister about my pregnancy. Huh? I'm not even pregnant yet. Why are you getting pregnant before me? Can't you read the situation? That's what I was told, and I couldn't believe my ears. And on top of that, my husband said something unbelievable as well.
I'm sorry, but let's give up on this time's pregnancy.
Huh? Why?
Because my sister hasn't yet, and we still have lots of opportunity.
Of course, that day I left my husband and went to my parents' house. But a few days later, my stepsister got pregnant, so he said,
Please give birth soon!
Although I was thinking about divorce, after hearing how my husband almost gave up on having babies with me.
It'd be better if the child could have both a mom and a dad.
Because my parents said that. After thinking for a long time about it, I decided to go back to my husband. After that, I was able to give birth to a healthy baby girl, and shortly after, my stepsister gave birth to a baby boy. But even then, my stepsister would try to one-up me. A mother should give birth to a boy, right?
That's right, sis! Alice, make sure to give a birth to a boy next time!
Even if you say that, I can't choose. My husband would only agree to his sister and would never show kindness to me. But a few years later, my stepsister divorced, and apparently the reason was due to her splurging habits. Even when we first went shopping together, she'd brag about her expensive bags and jewelry. Although my husband's affection to his sister was already abnormal, it became even worse after this. He began to withdraw money from his earnings. Hey, your earnings aren't matching with our bank balance.
Oh yeah, my sis is having a hard time now, so I'm supporting her.
Using our money without telling me? Didn't you think about the trouble it'd cost to our family?
Huh? Why do I have to tell you? It's my money.
Is he serious? I was so shocked by my husband's words. After that, I told my husband to not use our money without telling me, but he wouldn't listen to me, and so our living expenses declined. It was getting out of hand, so I tried talking with him, but
Is it bad to support your family?
he would then try to argue with me. But while my daughter and I was living a mediocre life, my husband and his sister seemed to be eating out often. To be honest, it was more than just support.
I don't need dinner tonight. I'm gonna be eating steak with my sister. I'll be eating sushi with my sis, so I'll be home late.
When I'd be making dinner, he'd message me those kinds of things. This is not a support. This is just wasting money. Apparently it's because his sister doesn't feel like making dinner. Since it was getting out of hand, I began to work at a new place to support our living, but...
Great! Now we can increase the amount of financial support of my sister.
My husband would say such absurd things. What are you saying? We have to take care of our lives too and prepare Anna's college tuition as well.
We just have to let the girls marry early, right? There's no reason for them to go to college then. My sis has a son, so she has to let him go to college.
Even so, that's something your sister should take care of, not us. You should be thinking about Anna.
Okay. Let's end this talk.
At this rate, I felt like all of our money will be used up by that sister. And Anna's future will be ruined. Even after that, one day when I was surprised that my husband came home early, he said something ridiculous.
Oh yeah, my sis was telling me her son hasn't been able to get a girlfriend yet.
I mean, he's still a middle schooler, shouldn't that be normal?
So I asked him, what about Anna? And he said he'd be okay with going out with her if she insists. Be happy, Anna.
After hearing that, I finally understood that he's a crazy guy. At this rate, our life would be ruined. I talked with my daughter. Anna, I'm sorry, but I'm thinking about divorcing Dad. I might cause you trouble, but I'm gonna do my best to take care of you. Totally support that, Mom. Dad's always at Aunt's house. You wouldn't make a difference. And Mom, you don't have to work too hard. I'll try to support you as much as I can, too. With such kind words from my daughter, I became determined to divorce my husband. I began to ignore my husband, and while getting help from my daughter with the household chores, I attempted on taking a promotional exam at my workplace. And I was successfully able to pass. When my pay increased, I began to pack up our things while my husband was away. And I asked advice from people at work on where my daughter and I could live next. When my preparation for moving out was going smoothly, one day my husband said to me,
My sis wasn't home today to make me food fast. Oh, jeez, I'm hungry.
I didn't prepare dinner for a person who I have no idea when he'll be coming back.
Huh? Who do you think is earning money for this house? You're able to live here only because I'm working.
When my husband was getting pissed off, my daughter came running down from upstairs. Mom is absolutely right. Even though Mom would always prepare dinner for you, it's you who always saying you don't need it. He seemed to be at a loss for words.
What are you saying? You can eat food because I go to work and make the money.
But Dad, you're giving your earnings to Auntie, right? So doesn't that make it that food we have at home is bought by Mom's earnings?
There are things that you kids won't understand.
Even a child like me knows that you're a scumbag. If you're saying things like that, why don't you live with Auntie then?
Hey, Anna, you're getting cocky here.
She's not. You're the one who's wrong here.
Then divorce! Let's divorce! What will you do now? I'm willing to forgive you if you get down on your knees and swear that you will never stand against me again.
Seeing my husband say that while grinning, I felt nothing. Yes, let's divorce. We wish for that as well. I said that and brought out the divorce documentations. Then my husband suddenly changed his expression.
Huh? What are you saying? How are you going to live? What about a house and living expenses?
As for a house, I'll be living in the company housing. And as for the money, while you were staying over at your sister's house, I took a promotional exam at my company. So now I earn enough money to support myself and Anna and live comfortably.
Whoa, wait! You're joking, right?
Why would I be joking? You give your earnings to your sister and you don't come back home for your daughter's birthday. Who can become happy living with that kind of person?
Even so, isn't divorce going a bit overboard? Anna, don't you think so too? You don't want to be separated from me, right?
To be honest, I'd be the same if you exist or not. I want to live together with just Mom, so please divorce already. Hearing this from his daughter, my husband seemed devastated. After that, we officially divorced. He declared that he wouldn't pay for compensation or Anna's school expenses, so in return, we demanded him to never show his face in front of us again. For me, who wanted to cut ties with my husband forever, this was enough for me. After my daughter and I began our new life, we happened to meet with my past neighbor who worked at the same company as my husband. He told me stories about my husband, telling me that it was normal for him to be not doing his work because he'd be talking with his sister, and that other people had to cover up for his mistakes. In the end, he became famous with work as the person who can't work and a person who has excessive attachment issues to his sister. Because of that, people began to look at him coldly, and he wasn't given any more jobs. My husband, who has a big ego, quit job on his own and was planning on living with his sister. But his sister didn't let him in the house because he was broke, and he isolated himself from society. To have his life ruined by his beloved sister? Goes around, comes back, I guess. My name is Chiaki. It's been several years since I married my husband, who was my college classmate. We didn't have any kids yet, but we got along well, and my husband would always take care of me. My in-laws were very nice people too, and when I went to greet them before our marriage, "Oh, you are a very cute girlfriend. Since we are going to become part of the same family soon, please take care of us along with our son." Yes, please take care of me too. And they would smile at me. The only worry was my sister-in-law, Sukumi. Sukumi loves her brother, and ever since we first met, she'd been hostile towards me. She ignored me even if I greet her, and even if we buy her souvenirs after going on a trip with my husband. Huh? What's this? It's so lame. She'd throw away the souvenir when my husband wasn't around, but when my husband would ask,
How did you like the souvenir from Chiaki?
she'd say, "It was wonderful. I loved it so much I tucked it away in the back of my desk securely." She was the kind of girl who'd lie normally. Since she was the sister of my husband, I couldn't really say anything about her, but after the incident, I tried my best to keep my distance from her. But one day, Miss Sukumi gave me a call. "Miss Chiaki, hello." It was the first time that Miss Sukumi gave me a call, so I had a really bad feeling about this. "What happened, Miss Sukumi?" "Actually, a few days ago, your mother dirtied my bag. And it was a recently released bag from a luxury brand." "Huh? My mother did?" "Yes. Your mother works at a cleaning company, right?" I knew it right away since you have an unusual last name. So there, she spilled juice from the garbage onto my bag. How will she repay for this? My mother did that? That's what I thought, but it is true that she works at a cleaning company. It's true that our last names is so unique that there's no stamp for our last name. So I did understand that she was able to figure out that we were related, but I'm sorry about what my mother did. I'll apologize too. It's obvious that you should apologize. But what I'm worried about is, how will you compensate for this? This bag was 3 million yen. 3 million? Well, instead of 3 million, if you treat me sushi, I'm fine with that. Since I love sushi. Sushi? Okay, I'll treat you sushi, so please forgive my mother for what she did. So that's how I promised Miss Sukumi that I'd treat her sushi. But she began to demand for unbelievable amount of money. "Miss Chiaki, I'm eating sushi at Tsukata Restaurant in Sujuku right now, so please come pay for it." Isn't that an expensive sushi place? So what? You said you'd pay for my sushi? Oh, I'm eating with my friends, so it's a total of 130k yen. Hurry up and bring the money. 130k? I paid 80k yen last week too. Huh? Do you know what you're saying? That bag from a luxury brand. It's not even that much compared to the price of the bag, so don't complain. Or what, should I send a bill to your mother? Or I could ask the company to fire her. Please stop. I'll bring the money, so please don't place any burden on my mother. You should have done that from the beginning. Hurry up and bring the money. However, Miss Sukumi's demands just kept getting bigger. But since my old-age mother was able to work at the cleaning company, just because she's been working there for long, it'd be extremely difficult for her to find a new job if she gets fired from there. My mother loved her job, and she seemed very lively while she was at work. I didn't want her to lose her place. Furthermore, I definitely couldn't make her pay millions of yen. But I couldn't say this to my husband too. Luxury brand bags are expensive. I didn't want my husband to take responsibility for what my mother did. So I paid Miss Tsukumi by breaking down my savings that I had saved when I was still single. But what should I do if I use up all my savings? There's a limited amount of savings. Thinking about what will happen once I use it all up, I was terrified. One day, seeing how I seemed feeling down, my husband took me on a trip. But even then, I received a call from Miss Tsukumi. Hey, I've been texting you from quite a while ago. I'm at Ginya Staccato Sushi. Since I wanted to eat a lot today, I ate 30 people's worth of expensive sushi. The bill's about 1 million yen. Hurry up and bring it. I'm sorry, but that's impossible. Huh? What? Are you going to disobey me? But I'm at Okinawa right now. Okinawa? What do you think you're doing? Saying that I was feeling down, my husband, along with my parents-in-laws, invited us to go on a trip to Okinawa. We were in a hotel, and with Miss Tsukumi's loud voice, her voice was heard by everyone in the room. Then my father-in-law asked me,
What do you mean, sushi? That's Tsukami, right?
Huh? Whose voice was that right now? Are my parents there too? While hearing Miss Tsukumi complain on the other side of the phone, I was questioned by my husband and my parent-in-laws, so I decided to tell them everything. After hearing the story, my father-in-law became red with rage and grabbed the phone from me.
What are you thinking? Expensive sushi? You should pay for that by yourself!
I can't! It's 1 million yen! I don't have that kind of money! Then my husband grabbed my phone.
Tsukami, I didn't know you were doing something so low grade. I'm extremely disappointed in you, and I'll no longer think of you as my sister. Don't ever get close to Chiaki.
No, brother, wait! My mother-in-law apologized to me while crying. For my daughter to be able to do something like this, how can I apologize for such behavior? I'm so terribly sorry. I have to apologize to your mother as well. No, it's true that my mother spilled juice on her bag. She dirtied Miss Tsukumi's bag from a luxurious brand. Luxurious brand bag? I don't think she can buy such things with her pay. But what she said was true. She even showed me the picture. After hearing my story, my mother-in-law grabbed the phone next and yelled at Miss Tsukumi with a demon-like face. As a result, we found out the bag was not Miss Tsukumi's, but instead her friend's. And on top of that, apparently she bumped into my mother on purpose, all because she did not like me who married her brother. After that, Miss Tsukumi and her friend, who were at the sushi place, could not pay for 1 million yen. So the owner reported them to the police. The police also gave a call to my in-laws as well, but they said,
I don't know of such a daughter.
And left her alone. So Miss Tsukumi ended up spending several days at the detention room. After that, right after we came back from our trip to Okinawa, my in-laws went to the sushi place where Miss Tsukumi ate and paid for her bill. Then they made her apologize to me and made her promise to repay all my money. Wait! If I repay all the money to Miss Chiaki, then I'll have no money for myself! How am I supposed to go out and play?
You have no such money until you repay everything back to Miss Chiaki.
They confiscated all of the bank books where she received her paychecks.
We'll stop the car, too.
No! On top of that, my husband said,
You have been my dear sister since you were still little. But I no longer wish to speak to someone like you who even got Miss Chiaki's mother involved in such evil deeds.
Being heavily criticized by my husband, Miss Tsukumi stood there crying. On top of that, Miss Tsukumi was kicked out of the house by her parents and was put into an old apartment building. Be quiet. You made Miss Chiaki go through all that. Don't come back until you repay everything to her. I don't want to live in this kind of place. I'll apologize, so please forgive me. On top of that, her friend found out that she spilled juice on her bag. So in the end, she had to pay more than 1 million yen in compensation. So she got what she deserved, really.
My name is Winnie Stewart. 2 years after getting married, I started to live with my in-laws. Mr. Bond, my father-in-law, became a little fragile with his health. And Mrs. Bond said she was worried she might not be able to cope alone if something happened to her husband.
Of course, this is only temporary. Once Dad becomes healthy again, we'll go back to our own lives. So would you be patient until then, honey?
Be patient? Darling, your parents are so kind, so I don't mind living with them at all. I'd responded to Dale like that at the time, but since our life together, Mrs. Bond suddenly switched personalities and started giving me a hard time. She'd get picky over lots of things, like my cooking and how it tastes plain, and the laundry and how it's hung outside to dry. I was able to cope with it if I considered it as a way of helping be a better housewife. But when her older sister stopped by, those words became quite something else, not at all like the potential words of encouragement. You see, Madame Bond loves arguments, and whenever I would argue with my mother-in-law, a coy look would spread across her face. Even when I gave birth to a daughter, the two of them would say, "You stupid coward! How can you call yourself a woman if you can't bear a son?" The insults were impressive. One day, though, the tables turned. It was on the day I had surgery because of a certain illness. When I came to, Dale and Mr. Bond were just standing there with huge smiles. Of course, Mrs. Bond, who I despised with a passion, wasn't present. I knew she wouldn't stop by, but at least it's quiet here, was what I'd thought. But then I heard something shocking from the two guys. Mrs. Bond, whom I thought me a nuisance, stopped by the surgery room numerous times during the procedure. She'd apparently grabbed the doctors and nurses. "Will she be saved? I will not forgive you if you don't do everything that is necessary. Please, tell me, how is she doing?" Again and again, she would visit the operating room with a worried look on her face. The doctor had gotten exasperated, and one of the nurses warned her, "Please, madam, you have to calm down."
Mom, I told you that the surgery wasn't anything complicated, did I? It'll be fine. Just leave it to the doctors.
Dale tried hard to console her, but "Even doctors are human, dear. You don't know what will happen," she retorted to him rather rashly. Mr. Bond, suspicious, then asked,
Hang on. Didn't you say once you didn't like Winnie very much?
All he got as a response was, and she never met his eyes, as she added, "It's not that I'm worried. Good grief, getting sick right when everyone was tired with their own jobs. Oh, so tiresome. Honestly, that girl." She was apparently as red as a tomato as she tried to convince them. I couldn't believe it at the time, and it led me to very twisted thinking like, yeah, I bet she wanted me dead, so she deliberately tried to muck about the doctor's business, right? Even after I left the hospital, Mrs. Bond was still harsh with me. But I doubt you know this already since you're so naive, but for your illness, this is a good medicine. She would leave stacks of books about various illnesses in the living room, and I personally don't care what happens to you, but my son and granddaughter would be very unfortunate, right? Whenever I got ill again, while she would still say some harsh things, she was a dear in that she cared for me and my daughter. Around then, I began to realize that she wasn't hard on because it was her nature, but that she didn't want me to know she was a lonely, embarrassed person. So I brushed off the harsh words with a heart and smile. It wasn't like I'd accepted every nasty thing she'd say to me, but it became easier to accept such a mother-in-law. Since then, my illness was cured completely. But 6 months later, Mr. Bond passed away. He was such a kind soul who comforted me after his dry wife and who took care of his granddaughter. In addition, whenever his wife seemed tired, he would tell her,
How about relaxing your shoulders, dear?
and massage her shoulders and back. I realized how much they loved each other, and I found the marriage of my dreams therein. After his passing, Mrs. Bond often sat in front of his shrine, entranced. Her harsh words halted abruptly, too. She just sat there, without energy, without happiness. I tried to get her to say something by deliberately breaking a dish by accident. Normally, I would be met with the, "You can't wash a single dish, can you?" and the, "Oh, you're so useless." But this time, she only answered with, "Winnie, dear, are you hurt?" Additionally, in July, she muttered to me, "I'm so sorry for everything until now." Her voice was so quiet, so devoid of her usual energy. She'd changed so drastically. Dale and I got a bit panicky and tried everything to console her, but her time in front of Mr. Bond's shrine got even longer. What was rare at their time, they got married after such a passionate lovers' relationship, and they were inseparable. During these hard times, Madame Bond often stopped by to visit. Her objective was to get Mrs. Bond and I to argue again, and she tried her darndest to make that happen. "Why, Hope, honey, you used to show your useless daughter-in-law who was boss of the house. Now, didn't you? Why aren't you saying anything? Oh, could it be that she gave you a hard time?" But no matter how much she pestered Mrs. Bond, the only response she ever got was, "Leave me alone," and was shut out. Frustrated by how inexistent action her sister was taking, she cried. "What are you gonna do? You're fine with just letting her run wild without a care in the world? Not only will your son be under her control, but your own house." The crassness was exasperating, but Mrs. Bond, with what she had left, cried, "Please, just stop," and just broke down. And that became Madame Bond's new daily schedule. At first, I thought she wanted to get back her sister's energy with her ecstatic bickering, out of some family spirit, but I was wrong. She told me, "Your mother-in-law, she was spilling harsh words on you before, wasn't she? Well now, want me to fill in that void you must have?" Then I realized, so she wasn't worried about her sister, but only that she wanted to see us argue. That made me sad, needless to say. And then, "Hey, miss, she's vulnerable. Attack now. Now's your chance." When she whispered this bullshit to me, something inside me snapped. I immediately slapped Madame Bond. She exclaimed, "You gangster!" At that, Mrs. Bond burst into the living room, and then, "Hope, dear, it's finally come. This bitch has finally showed her true colors. Look, she hit me." Oh, how her voice sounded furious. Mrs. Bond quietly replied, "Please stop this. Please. Tell me to die, and I will, I say." She broke down, and then Madame Bond said, "Well, go on, die then. See if I give a good goddamn." She actually kicked the poor crying woman. Upon seeing this, I screamed, "What the frick are you doing to my mother?" And before I knew it, I crashed a nearby beer bottle against her head. The bottle broke into pieces as easily as sugar glass, and a puzzled Madame Bond turned around to look at me. I will use a wine bottle next." At that stupid nonsense, she shot out of the house screaming in agony. I asked Mrs. Bond what was wrong with that bitch, and she said maybe she never approved of peaceful families. That's why, whenever my mother-in-law and I would argue, she would be in such a good mood. I couldn't ask for many details, but as I'd thought, Madame Bond had lost her own love in the war and married someone else. Her husband treated her like a slave, and she was jealous of getting married for love, of having children with someone you love, and on top of this, of multiple generations living in the same house. When Mrs. Bond was saying nasty things, the only thing on her mind was that she didn't have her son to be taken away from her. She apologized for me for not noticing that my aunt-in-law had climbed aboard and were bullying me together. So I told her, "How about we be even with this?" and slapped her in the face. She was dazed at first, but then, without even giving it a second thought, she said, "Thank you, dear," as she cried tears of joy. Personally, the fact that I could slap my despicable in-laws for what they did made me feel so much better, and everything was resolved afterwards, too. Now my mother-in-law is slowly going back to her old self, but without the nasty insults. And Madame Bond would make herself scarce upon seeing me. But I'm also not much of a strong person, and I'm worried that some side effects from being hit with a beer bottle would later float to the surface. But when I asked my husband, it was something done often at a party performance, and wasn't much of a big deal. But a bottle's a bottle. I'm living in a bit of fear these days, but so is Madame Bond. So perhaps that's also a compromise of sorts. With Mr. Bond now gone, my mother-in-law said, "I can now do the things that I can do myself, dear. You must treasure your life together." She hoped to send us back to our own lives, but one look at her would make anyone reluctant. This situation could happen to me and to anyone else, after all. It might be a bit hypocritical, but while I can't forgive for all she's done yet, I'm seriously considering living together, with a bit more understanding between the two of us.
Hi, I'm Stella. I'm a mother of one, and my life is busy with work and child upbringing. But there was something I'd been looking forward to for a while. A day trip that me and some friends of mine were planning. We'd been planning this trip for several months, and the date we could all go finally drew near. And one day, I was talking about that trip with the two of them. About this trip of ours, who's gonna provide the car? My husband's gonna use our car on that day, so I guess I can't.
I can though, no problem.
Right at that moment, a mother from my daughter's class, Mrs. Abbott, came to us.
Hello, what are you guys talking about?
Just planning a trip the three of us are planning.
Wait, really? That's nice. I want to come too.
Really? It's a day trip with our children coming too. It's quite a sudden trip for you, and it could be tight for you, you know? Mrs. Wrinkle said it so gently, mind. To be honest, Mrs. Abbott and I have hardly ever met in person. Coffee at a shop somewhere was different. Was a day trip with someone you hardly knew would cause one to be wary of one's behavior. I was honestly uncomfortable with the idea. Yeah, I don't know much of anything about Mrs. Abbott, but she seemed to be friends with the other moms, and if I declined to bring her along as well, that train of thought led me to a decision. I don't think it matters if one more person tags along. I gave the thumbs up on her coming with us.
Oh, yay!
Did you have a single child?
Yep, a single daughter.
So there will be 2 more people. The total will now be 8, so we need 2 cars. At this point, the time had been pretty late, so we decided to call it a day. Let's talk again tomorrow so we can change the reservation and arrange the situation with the cars.
Cool.
Got it.
All right then.
Fast forward to the next day. Mrs. Abbott's family was now fully on board, so now the 4 of us discussed the arrangements. But this is where we ran into some problems. Mrs. Abbott, who was actually the last of us to hop in our little escapades, she just took the wheel and started to make so many suggestions.
Hey, did you change the reservation for the number of people yet?
No, I didn't. Why do you ask?
That's good. Let's go on this without changing the number.
What? No change? She proclaimed that the number of people mustn't change. I got completely convinced that she was going to cancel the whole thing. Although this was a day trip, it was a trip, after all, and the money was a must. But then Mrs. Abbott said something that made me question my own ears. So would that mean you're not coming after all, Mrs. Abbott?
What are you talking about? Of course I am. This is a trip with my friends after all. But you said the number of people mustn't be altered. That's not what I mean, silly.
Neither me, or Mrs. Wrinkle, nor Mrs. Blair understood what the heck she was talking about.
I'm saying that because this is a trip with people we each know well and love, I'm asking that Miss Stella not join us.
This girl's words made 0 sense, and we were frozen clueless.
Now, hang on a second.
What do you mean? I don't understand what's going on here.
I'm telling you, don't come to the trip. You'll understand that if you go on a trip with someone you don't know, you're a little wary about, like, everything. And then, such a fun trip would be ruined. You should know that without me telling you, you know.
Hang on. You just stole my goddamn line. The heck are you doing? Inviting yourself and then uttering the unbelievable? That's not possible. I'm the person who made the reservations.
I'm just letting you be the one in charge. I mean, it's not like you have to be there, right? Lol.
The other two mothers also had expressions of stunned bewilderment. Mrs. Abbott, honey, we're only going because this trip was completely arranged by Miss Stella, you know.
Going without Miss Stella is out of the question, I say.
My friend supported me, saying that this was wrong.
You don't want to go on a trip with me, guys?
We're not saying that. It's just that common sense tells us this is complete nonsense.
Plus, if Miss Stella can't go, how are we going to arrange the cars? Only I can use mine. And you don't have a car yourself, right, Mrs. Abbott? We can all fit in a single car, guys.
Great. Now she's going to give some work for the police to do. When the trip hasn't even started, no less. Listen to yourself. 3 adults and 3 children in a small car is illegal. The feds will catch you. Mark my words.
What? Are you going to try to sabotage a fun trip between 3 friends now?
No, I'm not.
Listen here. You're just craving attention. You just assume you're the leader at every occasion. Why not look around you and understand a bit more,
You know I could say the same thing and more about you.
Oh, hang on. We could just borrow Miss Stella's car, right? Problem solved. You remember you just saying that we can't fit in one car, right? So why not go in your car?
Don't be ridiculous. Why do I have to lend my car for someone else's trip, on which I'm not invited, by the way?
Oh, it's fine, dear. It's just that my friend doesn't have the 2 cars, and I have a driver's license.
That's not the point.
Oh, good grief. This is getting annoying. Aren't you being a tad too selfish? Weren't you two also reluctant to go on this trip? The one that you arranged? Be glad I joined in the fun before she ruined your fun. Oh, and since you aren't going anymore, Miss Stella, you have some money to spare, right? This is quite a sudden trip, you see, so I'm gonna have to ask you to lend me some cash.
Enough! You've been speaking nonsense this past half hour. There's a line you shouldn't cross, and you just leaped over it.
I'll pay you back, don't worry. How about I pay you back $50 a month? That should do nicely, right?
The sheer absurdity of what I was hearing filled my mind with a red desire to explode. But then, the other mother stepped in for the counterattack. Okay, that's enough. Are you insane? Asking someone else for travel fees? And what's with your ridiculous reimbursement? We were looking forward to this trip very much. Everything seemed to be going smoothly until you came along and destroyed everything. If you want to take the wheel, think of your own trip.
What? Then how about a date to the amusement?
I'm not joining you ever.
If you want to be the leader, create a club or something. Good idea. Well, since Miss Stella is a pain in the ass, how about the 3 of us?
I'm not any joining of your bullshit.
Neither am I.
Like Mrs. Abbott a few moments ago, they interrupted her with refusals and declinations.
Hey, your attitudes are so rude, guys.
No, what's rude is your treatment of Miss Stella. I'm telling you again, you waded into our circle. Miss Stella so kindly allowed you to join us, even though she hardly knows you, and yet you treat her like this.
Yes, I agree, and I don't think I consider you my friend anymore. You're not coming with us. And now, hold on. Are you seriously choosing her over me? I can't believe you.
But of course we are. Merely comparing yourself to her is so presumptuous. You're not welcome to talk to us again.
Let's go, Miss Stella.
My friend and I left the shop, abandoning Mrs. Abbott and her arrogance. She would call back to them.
Oh, come on! I'm more of a friend to you than the likes of her. Why are you even hanging around with that bitch?
I was mistaken. She was screaming. Later on, the 3 of us gathered again to talk about the trip. What even was that stupid situation? So you two were with Abbott before? Yes. Well, more like I was one to whom she was friendly.
That personality of hers. She has no friends other than us. She felt lonely without us around. And when she saw you become friends with us, maybe she got jealous and thought of you as a liability.
That maybe really was the case. She needlessly emphasized her proclamations of being close to us, too.
But chronologically, we've been together from when our children went to the same kindergarten, and it's quite crass to compare the likes of her to you.
Yes, I was also a bit surprised to be treated that badly even though I hadn't done anything to her. Let's forget all about it and enjoy a fun trip with our beloved angels.
Oh, goody!
And when we came back from the trip later on, Mrs. Abbott, out of resentment for excluding her, she'd gone around to all the other mothers and told them that I'd bullied her into detaching from the group. But Mrs. Wrinkle and Miss Blair kindly explained everything in detail and told everyone it was not true. Furthermore, they told them the nasty things Mrs. Abbott had done to me instead. Mrs. Abbott had now become a target of negative gossip, and no one truly ever talked to her again, becoming isolated among the mothers. It wasn't like we were discriminating against her, but she truly got what she deserved with that inflated ego of hers. I don't pity her, nor will anyone else.
My name is Taylor Sackman. I was the captain of a formidable baseball team back in high school. Because of this, even though I wasn't attractive by any means, I was popular with girls in school. Some confessed their love to me, while others sent me love letters. All in all, I was surprised by my fame at school. But I was in love with my childhood friend, Melanie, and thus declined them all. Her house was but a stone's throw away from mine, and we were close enough to go to each other's houses often. Although we weren't in the same class, we went to the same school, and while time together became less frequent, our families remained close friends. One day, when I got home, Mom, Melanie, and a friend of hers were sitting on the couch together.
Thanks for the hospitality.
I'd never seen the girl before.
May I introduce Miss Maria Ackeridge? She only moved to our school 3 months ago, and she wants to become your friend, it seems.
Eh?
This must be a dream. Mr. Taylor is in front of me, talking to me. All thanks to Miss Melanie.
I see. This is how me and this girl known as Maria came to know each other. Since then, Melanie frequently brought Maria to my house. But ever since the girl started to stop by, some eerie, mysterious things started to happen around me wherever I went. My underwear, my towels that I used for practice, they often went missing. There was no way Melanie would steal those, so naturally my suspicions fell on Maria. But I couldn't prove anything. But everything changed one day. As usual, they both came over to my place. Melanie had gone to a nearby convenience store to buy some snacks. But unbeknownst to this, I'd left the door to my room open. The sight of Maria taking my underwear and pressing it against her face burned an unpleasant memory into my brain. Disgusted by what I just witnessed, I shouted, "Get out of this house! And don't ever come back!" I tried to kick her out.
Please don't say that. I love you, Mr. Sackman. I want to be with you. Even more, I don't mind if you take me right now.
She grabbed my hand and brought it against her own chest. I quickly swiped my hand away and told her, "Enough! I should tell you that I like Melanie." Just so you know, I hadn't told Melanie how I felt about her yet. I was going to when it became official I was going to my last high school national championships. In response, Maria said,
I get it.
She was much more mature than I thought, and everything came to a close. After I told Melanie what had happened, as well as everything else that had been going on up until now, she promised she'd never bring her again. But since then, Melanie started to keep her distance from me. It became rare for her to stop by. When we just happened to see each other as she walked by, she acted as though she never saw me. She even started to ignore me when I greeted her at school. After a while, I was suddenly called to the teacher's office. Present were not only my homeroom teacher, Mr. Upton, but also my baseball coach, the vice principal, and even the principal. And then these words shot out of Mr. Upton.
"So you got Maria Ackeridge from your grade pregnant, eh?" What do you suggest to do if this scandal prevents us from going to nationals?
After I asked, I found out that Maria was apparently spreading this rumor that she was carrying my baby. And this rumor echoed in the ears of the teachers. And that's how this whole situation started. Wait, what is the meaning of this? As soon as I said that, another voice said,
Excuse me!
When I turned around, I saw my parents, Maria, and what appeared to be Maria's parents enter the room.
You're Mr. Sackman, I presume. I've heard a lot about you from my daughter. According to her, you've come off as someone who is leading a healthy, proper relationship with her. But could you explain the meaning of this? Getting my own daughter pregnant?
Taylor, I'm so sorry. I couldn't lie my way out.
Miss Maria, what are you talking about?
I want you to do your best for the national championship. So for now, I'll keep quiet, okay? But you have to promise me that once you graduate, you'll have to marry me. And I'll wait for you as I raise the child with my parents. If you promise me that, I'll renounce the rumor and say that it was a lie. And I'll never say that this child is yours again.
My head couldn't keep up with everything, and I went into panic mode. Then my own mother pushed the back of my head down and said,
I'm so terribly sorry for what my son has done.
She tried to force me to apologize, so I quickly brushed off her hand and said, Why in the world are you believing this girl? You know there's no way this child's mine. I denied everything with all my might.
Why do you feign ignorance?
Maria's excuse was pathetic. She stated that once Melanie had gone to the store, she and I engaged in intercourse, and she got pregnant as a result.
I told him to stop it, but he said that he couldn't control himself anymore.
Okay, now I've had absolutely enough. Wrong! That isn't my child! Wow, you don't know when to quit, do you, Mr. Sapman? I'm telling you, her child isn't mine. And that's because I'm a virgin? I knew that such a statement wouldn't redeem myself in this situation. But at this point, that was all I had to topple Maria's propaganda on its head.
What? A virgin at 18 years old?
Right as she unwillingly said that, a man burst into the room.
No, that child is mine! Maria, you told me that you would marry me if you got pregnant!
The man was Mr. Garrison, the homeroom teacher of Melanie and Maria. I found out later, but apparently Maria had an alias, Miss Nymph, and was famous at her old school for destroying the careers of numerous teachers.
Come on. The pay for teachers are good and stable, right? So why not marry them and live life well and long?
That was why she was known as Miss Nymph, and the teachers would beg Maria's parents to keep quiet about the matter. And under the condition of paying them a large sum in damages, they wouldn't bring legalities into it. And after getting the huge sum, as promised, they never breathed a word. And then they packed up and disappeared somewhere forsaken, where she entered my school. But she never changed since. She targeted Mr. Garrison, and they indeed had sex. She chose to get pregnant this time because she wanted to get married to a teacher after she graduated. And in the end, she did conceive. But soon thereafter, she found out about my existence.
If Mr. Sackman became pro, that would be the cherry on the cake. The pay of a mere teacher is nothing.
Her wishes to marry Mr. Garrison then turned stone cold, and instead decided to pursue me, and she cleverly used someone close to me, Melanie. Then, carefully timing exactly when I'd be in my prime, she would blab about me impregnating her, and pretty much succeed in blackmailing me to marry her, no questions asked. Plus, she assumed that Mr. Garrison wouldn't go out of his way to destroy his own career over this whole thing. Her plan was foolproof. But this unexpected turn of events sent her into a frenzy.
Mr. Garrison, no, I mean, I did sleep with you on one occasion, but this child is unmistakably Mr. Sackman's.
There's no way! That's my child!
You have any proof?
I don't...
And at that moment,
There is proof.
Melanie strode into the room. Melanie?
Maria, stop this now. I don't mind you threatening me. By all means, go ahead. But I will not forgive you for trying to take baseball away from Taylor.
she brought out her cell phone and started to play a recording. In it, we heard what Maria had said to her before. It seemed that Maria had threatened Melanie. She told her to keep in touch with me, but never be alone with me, never talk to me. She broke her promise. She said she would destroy my baseball career. I now fully understood Melanie's anomalous behavior. It wasn't that she started to dislike me. She did what Maria told her to do for my sake, for the national championships.
How dare you record our little talks? You betrayed me. I thought we were friends. Someone who spreads ridiculous rumors and creating scandals just because they couldn't keep Taylor for themselves was never a friend. I'm done with you, slutty britches. In any case, you're the one who broke your promise with me that you would never hurt Taylor.
With the recording as evidence, a thorough discussion was had among the teachers. According to the evidence, Maria had been pregnant even before she met me. So that alone was solid evidence to disprove her reasoning. Her parents, at that moment, became deathly pale and fell to their knees, begging for forgiveness. Since then, there was some exasperating business with them. And while it wasn't much, we did demand some compensation. Maria was expelled, and after taking care of the baby as an unwanted pregnancy, she moved far away again. Disciplinary action was induced on Mr. Garrison, and what with the depression of getting dumped by Maria, he quit his job. He completely quit being a teacher. I was relieved that the curse of Miss Nymph was finally over.
Taylor said that he liked you, Melanie, but I'm going to make sure he falls for me, and you are going to help me.
Melanie's recording had even caught those words, and I guess it was a good memory that all the teachers present found out about my feelings for Melanie. After the scandal, thanks to Maria, or rather, thanks to her fault, I don't know. Anyway, Melanie and I quickly became a couple.
My name is Kayane Mubita, 35 years old. A while ago, I had a baby in my stomach. It was a baby I was finally able to conceive after 7 years of marriage. Every day I would rub my stomach, and together with my husband, we looked very much forward to meeting our baby. After becoming pregnant, I took maternity leave from my work. So I spent most of my day at home. That's when a new resident moved in next door. They were a couple about the same age as us, and we became close when they visited our house to introduce themselves. After then, we began to visit each other's houses and chat while enjoying some tea. Ms. Rinko, the wife, was the same age as me, and we became friends in no time. She'd listen to me talk about my baby, who was about to be born soon. Ms. Rinko seemed that she was planning on having a baby soon too, and she was very knowledgeable about raising children. Since I was bad at reading and researching, I was thankful for Ms. Rinko's kindness, as she would teach me many things. Oh, reminds me, I received some gifts from my acquaintance a while ago. What is it? Apparently it's a tea good for expectant mothers. If you don't mind, Ms. Zane, would you like to try some? You sure? I want to try. I wasn't sure if there was any health benefits for me, so I was a little troubled. I'd be happy if Ms. Zane tries it. Thanks! It doesn't taste strange. It tastes somewhat refreshing. Maybe the refreshing taste is good for you when you get morning sickness. Maybe it's a bit of an exaggeration to say that it's good for the body. But it tastes very good. Thank you very much, Ms. Rinko. Oh, sorry, but I totally forgot today is the day I have to go visit my mother-in-law. I'll be leaving now. Thank you very much for the tea. Sorry, but let's talk again soon. After seeing Ms. Rinko, who was going to visit her mother-in-law, off, I returned home. Just as I was thinking about cleaning the house, I suddenly felt a tightening pain in my stomach. Ouch! Feeling intense pain, I fell to the floor. The pain did not stop and my breathing became heavier as well. Someone! I felt greasy sweat trickling down my face and my head was spinning. I desperately tried to stay conscious and was somehow able to call an ambulance. The next time I opened my eyes, I was at the hospital. Where am I?
Kanae, are you alright?
My husband Takashi came to me with a face full of tears and took my hands and looked into my face.
Kanae, you were carried by an ambulance. Seems like you called the ambulance yourself, but apparently, by the time they arrived, you were already unconscious.
Oh, I see.
You did your best. Sorry that I couldn't be near you when this happened.
It can't be helped. You had work. I think my stomach suddenly hurt so bad that I was losing consciousness and then I suddenly thought, my baby! What happened to my baby? Is he all right?
Don't worry. Seems the baby is doing fine. And your body too. There seems to be no problems as well. I am so glad.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Miss, you're awake?
Yes. You're the doctor in charge of me, right? Thank you very much for taking care of me.
No problem. Because of your quick decision, you were able to save both yourself and your baby. I'm very happy for that. But I just have one point of concern. Did you take any medication before your stomach began to hurt?
I don't take any medications.
I see. This time, in addition to sudden abdominal distension, contractions of the uterus were observed as well. I thought this was quite unusual.
Currently, I don't take any medications because of my baby, so I don't think that's the case. After the doctor left, my husband asked me,
Do you have any idea why this might have happened?
That's when I remembered about the tea that Ms. Rinko gave me. Miss Rinko gave me a tea that's apparently supposed to be good for expectant mothers. My stomach began hurting after drinking that, but that can't be it, right?
I'll try asking Miss Rinko.
Since our baby's due date was getting closer, I decided to stay at the hospital. That night, Takashi stopped by our house to get things I needed during my stay at the hospital, and along the way, he stopped by Ms. Rinko's house. And he asked her about the tea she gave me. The tea I gave Miss Kanae? It's this. Kashi drank the tea, but he felt like it tasted just like normal barley tea. I also thought that it was normal barley tea too, but after asking him, didn't it taste kind of refreshing? He became quiet and seemed like he began to think about something. After a few days of us not figuring out the reason for my stomach pain, Ms. Rinko came to visit us. That day, Takashi took a day off from work, so he was with me in the hospital room.
Since Miss Rinko is here, I'll go out to do some shopping. Please, keep my wife company.
After saying that, he left the room. Miss Kanae, I'm sorry for what happened. I heard you lost your baby, too. My baby was fine. Uh-huh? Your baby was fine? That's a disappointment. Uh-huh? My baby was fine, though. Yeah, so I'm saying that's disappointing. You should have died along with the baby. Uh-huh? What's wrong with you, Ms. Rinko? Actually, I was pregnant before I moved to your house. I was excited to see my baby, but because of some minor accident, I lost him. After that day, I became depressed and felt like I was in hell every day. Seeing me become like that, my husband suggested we move. I thought that I'd feel better if we moved to a new place, but that's when I met you. Pregnant, walking carefree with that stupid look on your face. No, that's how you thought of me? Yes, that's right. I studied so hard for my baby, and yet I had a miscarriage. But you were doing nothing for your baby, but your stomach would grow bigger and bigger every day. I just couldn't accept that. That's why I wanted you to disappear. I was so shocked I couldn't say anything. Ms. Rinko kept talking. But it was surprising that her tonic really has an effect. But I guess I didn't put enough. I was so disappointed that you managed to survive. That's when we heard a door knock. I'll be taking my leave now, Miss Zane. Take care of yourself. Ms. Rinko left the room, putting back on a friendly smile. I was thinking, how should I tell Takashi about this? Or if he'll even believe me. So I couldn't bring myself to talk.
Kanae, did something happen?
Takashi, I don't know if you'll believe this, but... So I decided to tell Takashi what I just heard from Ms. Rinko. But I don't have any evidence. It's frustrating.
Kanae, don't worry.
After saying that, my husband took out a voice recorder behind the TV next to my bed. Huh? When did you...
To be honest, I knew something was wrong when I checked the tea at Miss Rinko's house. You won't say that a normal barley tea is particularly good for expectant mothers, right? And Kanae, you said the tea tasted refreshing. But for me, I didn't get that feeling. With this evidence, we'd be able to punish Miss Rinko. You don't have to worry about anything, Kanae.
After that, Takashi quickly got on business, and using the evidence from the voice recorder, he filed criminal charges against Ms. Rinko. Ms. Rinko was indicted, convicted, and sentenced to prison. Ms. Rinko's husband confessed that after the miscarriage, Ms. Rinko became crazy, so he filed a divorce. I do feel sorry that Ms. Rinko had a miscarriage, but because a misfortune happened to you, that does not mean that you are allowed to put others through the same thing. I hope that Ms. Rinko will find her thoughts in prison.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.